The signal was 43 seconds of compressed avian band distress tone, repeated on a loop, and it shouldn't have been in my queue at all. I was running routine deep fringe noise scrubs on the third watch of a 17-day transit leg. Most of what I pulled was thermic scatter, old navigation pings bouncing off asteroid belts, the occasional merchant transponder, too cheap to upgrade its encryption. The Vethkari signal was buried in a frequency band. The Galactic Relay Network had stopped actively monitoring 6 years ago when the Council of Species Communications reassigned its bandwidth to commercial shipping lanes. 43 seconds, strength 0.004 above baseline. The relay at Juncture Station had logged it as sub-threshold noise and passed it on to no one. I flagged it anyway. Something in the compression pattern looked deliberate. The kind of deliberate that takes hands to produce. Not weather. That was the first beacon. I ran a retrograde scan on the surrounding band going back 19 days, and there it was. The shape of it if you knew to look. 40 separate signals. 40 distinct compression signatures, each one slightly different. Each one just barely below the relay threshold. The relay hadn't forwarded a single one. The relay hadn't been designed to notice that 40 whispers in the same octave, scattered across a debris field 200,000 kilometers wide, might be one voice trying very hard not to go quiet. I woke Lieutenant Fassbender at 0340. I had the mosaic on his screen before he finished blinking. He looked at it for 11 seconds. Then he said, "Get me Captain Voss." We were 6 hours out by the time I finished the triangulation. The debris field resolved on approach as the remnants of a Vethkari conveyance cluster. 7 long-range council transports, the kind that carry governance delegations between the outer Aries. Something had gone wrong in transit. A cascade failure in the formation's shared navlink, the captain would later estimate, compounded by a micro-debris strike on the lead vessel. Transports had fragmented. Their crew and passengers had evacuated into individual life pods, and then the pods had scattered, and the galaxy had not come. 40 pods, 19 days. The Vethkari do not survive cold well. Their feathers are insulation against altitude wind, not vacuum. Their life pods were rated for 10 days on thermal reserves. Captain Voss brought us in on a spiral retrieval pattern and started talking to me like I was part of the bridge team, which I wasn't technically. "OC," she said. "The first time using my name instead of my rank. I need continuous acoustic mapping of the active beacons. Tell me immediately if any of them stop." I said yes, ma'am, and got to it. The first pod came aboard at 0611. The hatch cycled, and 2 of our medics went in and came back out carrying a Vethkari elder, a council wing, the silver banding on her flight feathers, now matted and dull from 19 days without preening. She was conscious. She looked at the medic holding her shoulders, and then she looked at the ceiling of our hangar bay, and then she made a sound I did not have a translation for. My earpiece gave me a rough rendering, something between impossible. Priest Fange. Still here. The medics got her to the ward. We went back for the next pod. I tracked the signals. I did not let a single one go quiet. There is a rhythm to a retrieval operation when the crew knows what it's doing. The Halcyon Drift was a light frigate, not a rescue vessel. We had no dedicated triage bay, no mass casualty configuration, no pre-positioned recovery teams. What we had was a chief engineer who turned our secondary cargo hold into a thermal ward in 4 hours, a flight crew that flew 14 pod recovery runs without a rest break, cook named Petrov, who apparently knew the Vethkari dietary protocol, and started heating something that smelled of seed grain before the third. Pod was even aboard. I don't know how Petrov knew. I didn't ask. That was the kind of Halcyon Drift was. By mid-afternoon we had 26 pods recovered and 14 signals still active on my board. I had not eaten. I had not noticed not eating. At 17:10, one of the signals dropped below broadcast threshold. My stomach dropped with it. I told Captain Voss. She was already turning the ship. The pod was at the outer edge of the field, drifting on a slow tumble, its beacon degraded by a micro-crack in the transmitter housing. Our flight crew brought it in on manual guidance because the automated systems couldn't get a clean lock on the spin. I watched on the hangar camera as the recovery arm caught it on the third pass. The Vethkari inside was a young male an aide or attaché from his plain gray feathering. He was hypothermic and unconscious, and the medics worked on him for 40 minutes in the cargo hold while I sat at my station and watched the remaining 13 signals and tried not think about what I would do if any more degraded. None of them did. At 1940, a second one flickered. I had the location data on Captain Voss's screen. Before the beacon completed its first degraded cycle, she rerouted without comment. Recovery arm caught it clean on the first pass this time, and the Vethkari inside, an elderly female, feathers white as cloud base, clutching a small document case to her chest even in hypothermia, was breathing when the medics reached her. She did not let go of the document case. They didn't make her. We recovered the last pod at 22:04 local ship time. 40 pods, 40 survivors. I double-checked the number 3 times before I let myself write it into the recovery log. The council wing who had come aboard first. Her name was Velsar. The translation service informed me, a senior deliberation elder, the highest-ranked member of the delegation, was on her feet by morning. Not recovered, not fully, upright, and moving through the thermal ward, with a deliberateness that told me she was not the kind of elder who let others see her sitting down when she could help it. Captain Voss invited her to the observation deck at ship's dawn. I was ordered to attend as the crew member who had assembled the signal mosaic, which was not a thing I had expected to be told. The observation deck of the Halcyon Drift was as a modest curve of reinforced glass above the bridge, looking out over the bow. Not an impressive space, a coffee ring on the console that no one had managed to fully scrub, a crack in the corner of the left pane that maintenance kept papering over. In the amber light of the system's primary, the Vethkari debris field was still visible, a faint glitter at this distance, like a net of ice. Velsara stood at the glass and looked at it for a long time. Her feathers had been preened. Someone on the crew had found a suitable comb. I suspected Petrov again, but I still did not ask. Then she turned to Captain Voss and she said, "Through the translation service, relay network marked our signals as noise." Voss said yes, for 19 days. Yes, and you. Velsara turned those amber eyes on me then, and I held still the way you hold still when something very old is looking at you very carefully. You assembled them, by hand. "It's my job," I said. Noise scrubs on the deep fringe band. I noticed the pattern. She was quiet for a moment. The light through the glass was warm on her silver-banded feathers. "We had a saying in the Council Ares," she said, "that the deep dark does not listen. That signals sent into it return nothing, that a voice alone is only a voice." She paused. "We sent 40 voices. Expected nothing. I didn't say anything. I didn't know what to say. One ship came," she said. "It was not a complaint. It was not an accusation. It was the tone of a person revising a belief they had held for a very long time." Captain Voss said quietly, "That's usually how it goes." Velsara looked at her. Then she looked at me. Then she looked out at the glitter of the debris field, the place she had expected to die, where her entire delegation had expected to die, where they had broadcast their chorus into the dark for 19 days, and received no answer from any direction. "One ship," she said again, softer this time, like she was making sure the word fit. "We began the transit to the nearest Vethkari Aerie station at Sa740. I filed my log at 0800, the standard 24-hour report on the night watch's activities. Signal noise scrub, deep fringe band, 0100 Evro 400 bro. Pattern anomaly identified. Beacon cluster, acoustic mosaic assembled and verified. Captain notified. Recovery operation conducted. 40 survivors aboard." I wrote it in the flat language logs are supposed to be written in, because that is what logs are for. I noted no drama. I described no faces. I left out what Velsara had said at the glass, because that was not a thing the log needed to know. What the log knew was 40 beacons, 1 ship, 3 survivors, mission complete. The rest of it, the way she'd said, 1 ship, in that soft, revised voice, like she was learning the sound of something she had stopped believing in, that I kept for myself.